On January 12, 2010, a cataclysmic event unfolded in Haiti, changing the nation's landscape and impacting millions of lives. At precisely 4:53 p.m. local time, a powerful earthquake struck the Caribbean nation, registering a magnitude of 7.0. This seismic event was centered near Léogâne, approximately 25 kilometers, 16 miles, west of Port-au-Prince, Haiti's bustling capital city. The earthquake was not only a sudden and violent jolt, but also a disaster of unprecedented scale that brought widespread destruction and suffering. Haiti, located on the island of Hispaniola, shares its territory with the Dominican Republic. The island has a history of seismic activity due to its position on the boundary between the Caribbean and North American tectonic plates. The geological setting makes it particularly susceptible to earthquakes. This vulnerability had been evident in the past, with significant tremors recorded in 1751 and 1770 that affected the region. However, the 2010 earthquake was unparalleled in its severity and impact. The Enriquillo Plantain Garden fault system, which runs through the region, was the source of the earthquake. This fault system is a complex network where the Caribbean and North American plates converge. For decades, stress had been accumulating along this fault line without major releases. On that fateful day, the accumulated stress was released in a sudden rupture, producing a massive earthquake that would prove catastrophic. Port-au-Prince, the capital city, is a densely populated urban area with a high concentration of buildings and infrastructure. The city, already struggling with poverty and limited resources, bore the brunt of the earthquake's impact. Many of its buildings were constructed with inadequate materials and techniques, exacerbating the damage. The shaking caused by the earthquake resulted in the collapse of countless structures, including residential buildings, commercial properties, and government offices. The immediate aftermath of the quake was chaotic. The ground shook violently, with the initial tremor lasting just under 30 seconds. Despite the short duration, the effects were devastating. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble, and the landscape of Port-au-Prince was forever altered. The earthquake's force was so intense that it caused severe damage to the infrastructure and disrupted essential services such as electricity, water supply, and telecommunications. In the hours following the quake, the scale of the destruction became increasingly evident. The Haitian government, already operating under strained conditions, struggled to respond to the disaster. The lack of preparedness for such a large-scale event left the nation struggling to manage the immediate and overwhelming needs of its people. International aid organizations and foreign governments quickly mobilized to provide assistance. However, the delivery of aid faced significant obstacles. The earthquake had damaged roads and bridges, making transportation of relief supplies difficult. The port of Port-au-Prince, a critical point for receiving international aid, was also affected, compounding the challenges faced by relief efforts. The human toll of the earthquake was staggering. Estimates suggest that over 250,000 people lost their lives, and more than 300,000 were injured. The quake left approximately 1.5 million people homeless, many of whom were forced to seek shelter in makeshift camps. The destruction of homes, schools, and hospitals left survivors without basic necessities and essential services. The immediate response to the disaster highlighted the severe limitations of Haiti's emergency management infrastructure. The country's weak building codes and inadequate urban planning contributed to the extent of the damage. The earthquake exposed the vulnerability of Haiti's infrastructure and underscored the need for improved disaster preparedness and response mechanisms. In summary, the 2010 Haiti earthquake was a defining moment in the nation's history. The initial tremor and its aftermath revealed the profound challenges faced by Haiti, from the immediate destruction to the long-term recovery efforts. The earthquake's impact was felt not only in the physical devastation, but also in the human suffering and the immense task of rebuilding a nation. The catastrophic 2010 Haiti earthquake resulted from a complex interaction of geological forces, primarily involving the movement of tectonic plates. To understand the formation of this devastating earthquake, it's essential to delve into the geological background of the region and the immediate sequence of events on January 12, 2010. Haiti is situated on the island of Hispaniola, which is located at the boundary between the Caribbean plate and the North American plate. This tectonic boundary is characterized by a series of faults, including the Enriquillo Plantain Garden Fault System. The Enriquillo Plantain Garden Fault is a strike-slip fault, meaning that the plates slide past each other horizontally. This fault system has been the source of significant seismic activity in the region, with stress accumulating over time due to the slow, relentless movement of the tectonic plates. For decades prior to the earthquake, the Enriquillo Plantain Garden Fault System had been experiencing increased stress due to the ongoing tectonic forces. Despite the accumulation of strain, there had been no significant earthquake release along this fault, leading to a buildup of potential energy. This stress accumulation is what ultimately triggered the catastrophic event on January 12, 2010. On that fateful day at precisely 4:53 p.m. local time, the Enriquillo Plantain Garden Fault System experienced a sudden rupture. The earthquake struck with a magnitude of 7.0, a powerful force capable of causing widespread destruction. The epicenter of the quake was located near Léogâne, approximately 25 kilometers, 16 miles, west of Port-au-Prince, the capital city of Haiti. The earthquake's rupture occurred along a section of the fault where stress had accumulated over many years. The release of this stress produced a violent shaking of the ground, felt intensely throughout the region. The seismic waves radiated outward from the epicenter, causing significant ground movement and structural damage. In the moments immediately following the quake, the intensity of the shaking was overwhelming. The tremor lasted just under 30 seconds, but during this brief period, the impact was profound. The ground shook violently and many buildings and structures, already vulnerable due to inadequate construction standards, collapsed under the force of the quake. The immediate effects of the earthquake were catastrophic. In Port-au-Prince, the capital city, the tremor caused widespread destruction. Buildings that had stood for years, including homes, commercial properties, and government offices, were reduced to rubble. Streets and infrastructure were severely damaged, with roads buckling and bridges collapsing. The impact on the population was devastating. Many people were caught off guard, and the collapse of buildings resulted in a significant number of casualties. In the first few hours following the earthquake, the full extent of the damage began to emerge. The scenes were chaotic and harrowing. Streets filled with debris, injured people seeking help, and survivors trying to rescue those trapped under the rubble. The earthquake's force also caused landslides and structural failures in areas surrounding Port-au-Prince, amplifying the overall impact. The tremor disrupted essential services such as electricity, water supply, and telecommunications, compounding the challenges faced by the survivors and emergency responders. In the immediate aftermath of the quake, the Haitian government faced enormous challenges in coordinating a response. The destruction of key government buildings and the disruption of communication networks hindered the ability to assess the situation and mobilize resources effectively. The scale of the disaster overwhelmed the nation's emergency management infrastructure, which was already operating under significant strain. International aid organizations and foreign governments quickly began to mobilize relief efforts. However, the delivery of aid faced considerable obstacles. The destruction of roads and infrastructure made it difficult to transport relief supplies to affected areas. The port of Port-au-Prince, a crucial point for receiving international aid, was also impacted, further complicating the distribution of assistance. The first day of the earthquake was marked by confusion, desperation, and the urgent need for coordinated rescue and relief efforts. As the extent of the destruction became clearer, it was evident that the road to recovery would be long and challenging. The initial response highlighted both the immediate needs of the survivors and the logistical hurdles faced by those attempting to provide assistance. In summary, the formation of the 2010 Haiti earthquake resulted from the complex interactions of tectonic forces along the Enriquillo Plantain Garden Fault System. The earthquake's immediate impact was devastating, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. The first day following the quake was characterized by intense shaking, severe damage, and significant challenges in responding to the crisis. The events of January 12, 2010 set the stage for a long and arduous recovery process for Haiti. The earthquake that struck Haiti on January 12, 2010 had a profound and far-reaching impact, particularly on the cities and densely populated areas. The destruction caused by the earthquake was catastrophic, leaving a lasting mark on the urban landscape and the people who lived there. In this part, we will explore the earthquake's impact on Haiti's cities, the immediate effects of the disaster, and the human toll it took. Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, bore the brunt of the earthquake's destructive power. As the most populous city in the country, with over 2 million residents, it was the epicenter of the nation's government, commerce, and culture. The city was already grappling with issues of poverty, inadequate infrastructure, and overcrowding. which only exacerbated the disaster's effects. When the earthquake struck, the results were devastating. The city's buildings, many of which were poorly constructed and lacked proper reinforcement, crumbled under the intense shaking. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble in seconds. Iconic landmarks such as the Presidential Palace, the National Assembly Building, and the Port-au-Prince Cathedral were severely damaged or completely destroyed. Residential areas were hit hardest, with thousands of homes collapsing, often with people trapped inside. The densely packed neighborhoods, built on steep hillsides and unstable ground, were particularly vulnerable to the quake's force. The destruction of these homes left countless families without shelter, forced to live in makeshift camps amid the debris. The town of Léogâne, located near the earthquake's epicenter, suffered near total destruction. It is estimated that up to 90% of the buildings in Léogâne were either destroyed or severely damaged. The town's population, which was around 134,000 at the time, faced an almost unimaginable level of devastation. The loss of life was significant, and the survivors were left with little to no resources to rebuild their lives. The surrounding areas, including smaller towns and rural communities, also experienced severe damage. The earthquake's impact extended beyond the immediate vicinity of the epicenter, with tremors felt across much of the country. However, the lack of infrastructure and the remote location of many of these communities made it difficult for aid to reach them quickly, further compounding their suffering. The earthquake caused widespread damage to Haiti's infrastructure, crippling the country's ability to respond to the disaster and provide for the needs of its people. Roads were severely damaged or blocked by debris, making it nearly impossible for vehicles to pass through. This hampered rescue efforts and delayed the delivery of much-needed aid to affected areas. The port of Port-au-Prince, a vital hub for importing goods and receiving international aid, was severely damaged, with its main wharf partially submerged. This disruption of maritime transportation further isolated Haiti from the outside world in its hour of need. The capital's main airport was also damaged, though it remained operational, becoming a critical lifeline for the influx of international aid and emergency responders. Public utilities, including electricity, water, and sanitation, were heavily impacted by the earthquake. Power outages were widespread, and the city's water supply system was disrupted, leaving many without access to clean drinking water. The lack of basic services increased the risk of disease outbreaks, particularly in the crowded makeshift camps where survivors sought refuge. The human toll of the earthquake was staggering. The Haitian government estimated that over 230,000 people lost their lives as a result of the disaster, though the exact number remains uncertain. Hundreds of thousands more were injured, many with severe life-threatening injuries that required urgent medical attention. The destruction of hospitals and medical facilities left the healthcare system in shambles, unable to cope with the overwhelming number of casualties. In addition to the immediate loss of life, the earthquake left over 1.5 million people homeless. Displaced families were forced to live in temporary shelters, often in overcrowded and unsanitary conditions. These makeshift camps sprang up in open spaces, parks, and along roadsides, creating a humanitarian crisis that would persist for years. The emotional and psychological impact on the survivors was profound. Many people lost not only their homes and belongings, but also loved ones. The trauma of the earthquake, coupled with the uncertainty of the future, left deep scars on the Haitian population. The sense of loss and grief was palpable as communities struggled to come to terms with the scale of the disaster. The earthquake also had a devastating impact on Haiti's economy, which was already fragile before the disaster. The destruction of businesses, government buildings, and infrastructure crippled the country's economic activity. The informal sector, which many Haitians relied on for their livelihoods, was particularly hard hit, with markets and small businesses destroyed. Reconstruction efforts would require massive financial resources, far beyond what Haiti could manage on its own. The country's reliance on international aid became even more pronounced in the aftermath of the earthquake, as it faced the daunting task of rebuilding not only its physical infrastructure, but also its economy. The immediate effects of the earthquake left Haiti in a state of crisis. The country faced an unprecedented humanitarian disaster, with millions of people in desperate need of assistance. The scale of the destruction and the challenges of providing aid in such a devastated environment highlighted the vulnerabilities of a nation already struggling with poverty, political instability, and underdevelopment. In the days and weeks that followed the earthquake, the world watched as Haiti grappled with the enormity of the disaster. The international community responded with an outpouring of support, but the road to recovery would be long and arduous. The impact of the earthquake on Haiti's cities, infrastructure, and people was profound, leaving a legacy that would shape the nation's future for years to come. In the immediate aftermath of the 2010 Haiti earthquake, the nation was thrust into a state of chaos and despair. The destruction was so extensive that it affected nearly every aspect of daily life, leaving the country in desperate need of help. Part 4 will explore the aftermath of the disaster, including the widespread destruction of homes and infrastructure, the response to the crisis, and the ongoing struggle for recovery. The earthquake's impact on Haiti's infrastructure was catastrophic, but the destruction of homes and entire communities was even more devastating on a personal level. Over 1.5 million people were displaced, forced to flee their shattered homes and seek shelter wherever they could. Makeshift camps quickly sprang up across Port-au-Prince and surrounding areas as people constructed temporary shelters from whatever materials they could find: sheets, tarps, and pieces of scrap metal. These camps, often overcrowded and lacking basic amenities, became the new reality for many Haitians. Living conditions were dire, with limited access to clean water, sanitation, and healthcare. The spread of disease became a constant threat, particularly in the hot and humid climate. The lack of adequate shelter and the fear of aftershocks added to the physical and psychological toll on survivors. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble with no clear path to rebuilding. The destruction of homes meant not only the loss of personal property, but also the loss of family history and heritage. Many survivors were left to mourn the death of loved ones buried beneath the ruins, as the process of recovering bodies was slow and painful. Haiti's already fragile public services and infrastructure were pushed to the brink of collapse by the earthquake. The destruction of government buildings, including the Presidential Palace and the National Assembly, created a power vacuum at a time when strong leadership was desperately needed. Many government officials were killed or injured, and those who survived struggled to coordinate the country's response to the crisis. The collapse of public services was felt most acutely in the healthcare sector. Hospitals and clinics, many of which had been under-resourced and overcrowded before the disaster, were overwhelmed by the influx of injured and sick people. Medical supplies quickly ran out, and healthcare workers were forced to operate under extreme conditions, often without electricity or running water. The destruction of the main teaching hospital in Port-au-Prince was a significant blow to the country's medical infrastructure, leaving many without access to critical care. Transportation infrastructure was also severely damaged. Roads were blocked by debris, and many bridges were destroyed, cutting off access to remote areas. The Port-au-Prince airport, while still functional, was overwhelmed by the sudden influx of international aid, leading to delays in the distribution of supplies. The destruction of the port further complicated the logistics of bringing in aid and rebuilding materials. In the days following the earthquake, the international community responded with an outpouring of support. Governments, NGOs, and individuals from around the world mobilized to provide aid to the stricken nation. The United Nations, which had already been present in Haiti with a peacekeeping mission, played a central role in coordinating the global response. Countries such as the United States, Canada, France, and many others sent rescue teams, medical personnel, and humanitarian supplies to Haiti. The U.S. military established a significant presence, helping to restore order, distribute aid, and provide medical care. NGOs, both large and small, set up operations on the ground, working alongside local organizations to deliver food, water, shelter, and medical assistance. The global response was unprecedented in scale, but it also highlighted significant challenges. The sheer volume of aid entering the country created bottlenecks in distribution, with supplies piling up at the airport and port while people in need went without. The lack of coordination among the many organizations operating in Haiti led to inefficiencies and duplication of efforts. Despite these challenges, the international aid effort provided critical relief to millions of Haitians. Emergency food distribution helped stave off famine, while medical teams treated thousands of injuries and prevented the outbreak of diseases such as cholera. The presence of international forces helped maintain order in the chaotic environment, preventing widespread looting and violence. While the immediate response to the earthquake focused on saving lives and providing emergency relief, the long-term recovery process proved to be an even greater challenge. Rebuilding Haiti would require more than just repairing physical infrastructure. It would require addressing deep-rooted issues of poverty, governance, and social inequality. One of the most pressing challenges was the need to rebuild homes and provide permanent shelter for the millions of displaced people. However, the lack of land tenure laws and the chaotic nature of land ownership in Haiti complicated efforts to relocate people and rebuild communities. Many people were reluctant to leave the makeshift camps, fearing they would lose their claims to their land or that new homes would not be built in safe locations. Reconstruction efforts were also hampered by the slow disbursement of international aid. While billions of dollars were pledged by governments and organizations around the world, much of the money was tied up in bureaucratic processes, leading to delays in funding for critical projects. Corruption and mismanagement of funds further undermined the recovery process, with many Haitians feeling that the aid was not reaching those who needed it most. The aftermath of the earthquake left Haiti at a crossroads. The destruction was so complete that it offered an opportunity to rebuild not just physical structures, but also the social and economic systems that had contributed to the country's vulnerability. However, the path to recovery was fraught with challenges and progress was slow. For many Haitians, the struggle to rebuild their lives became a daily reality. While some were able to return to their homes or find new housing, many remained in temporary shelters for years after the earthquake. The lack of economic opportunities and the slow pace of reconstruction left many feeling hopeless and forgotten. Despite the hardships, there were also stories of resilience and hope. Communities came together to support one another, and local organizations played a crucial role in the recovery process. The earthquake had exposed the weaknesses of Haiti's institutions, but it had also shown the strength and determination of its people. The struggle for recovery in Haiti is ongoing, and the road ahead remains difficult. The earthquake was a defining moment in the country's history, one that reshaped its future and left a lasting impact on its people. The efforts to rebuild Haiti continue, driven by the hope that out of the rubble, a stronger and more resilient nation can emerge. The 2010 Haiti earthquake was a catastrophe that profoundly altered the course of the nation's history. The earthquake's legacy extends far beyond the immediate destruction and loss of life. It is a story of resilience, recovery, and the ongoing challenges that the Haitian people continue to face. The earthquake left an indelible mark on Haiti, reshaping its landscape, society, and economy. Entire communities were wiped out, and the physical scars of the disaster are still visible today in the ruined buildings and makeshift camps that persist across the country. The earthquake also had a deep psychological impact, leaving many Haitians grappling with trauma and loss. The memory of the disaster is a constant presence in the national consciousness, a reminder of the vulnerability and fragility of life. The disaster also brought to light the profound challenges that Haiti faced long before the earthquake. Poverty, political instability, and weak infrastructure had made the country especially vulnerable to such a disaster, and the earthquake exposed these systemic issues in stark relief. The struggle to rebuild Haiti in the aftermath of the earthquake became a symbol of the broader struggle for justice, equality, and development in the nation. In the wake of the earthquake, the international community rallied around Haiti, providing unprecedented levels of aid and support. The world's response was a testament to global solidarity, with governments, NGOs, and individuals from all corners of the globe coming together to help a nation in need. However, the international response was also fraught with challenges and controversies. The slow pace of aid disbursement, the lack of coordination among relief efforts, and allegations of corruption and mismanagement all hindered the recovery process. Despite these issues, the global response played a crucial role in saving lives and stabilizing the country in the immediate aftermath of the disaster. International aid provided critical resources for rebuilding infrastructure, healthcare, and education, and many of these efforts continue to this day. However, the experience of the earthquake also highlighted the limitations of foreign aid and the importance of empowering local communities to lead their own recovery. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the 2010 Haiti earthquake is the resilience of the Haitian people. In the face of unimaginable adversity, Haitians showed incredible strength and determination, coming together to rebuild their lives and their communities. Local organizations, grassroots movements, and individual acts of kindness and solidarity played a crucial role in the recovery process, often filling gaps left by international efforts. The road to recovery has been long and difficult, and many challenges remain. Haiti continues to struggle with poverty, political instability, and the effects of natural disasters. The process of rebuilding has been slow, and many of the promises made in the aftermath of the earthquake have yet to be fulfilled. But the resilience of the Haitian people offers hope for the future. Over the years, Haiti has taken steps toward recovery and development, New infrastructure has been built, healthcare and education have improved in some areas, and there have been efforts to strengthen governance and reduce corruption. While progress has been uneven and setbacks frequent, there is a sense that Haiti is slowly moving forward. The 2010 Haiti earthquake offers many lessons for the world. It is a stark reminder of the importance of disaster preparedness and the need to address the underlying vulnerabilities that make some communities more susceptible to the impacts of natural disasters. It also highlights the complexities of international aid and the importance of ensuring that recovery efforts are inclusive, accountable, and driven by the needs and voices of those most affected. For Haiti, the earthquake was a turning point, a moment that exposed the deep-seated challenges facing the nation, but also one that sparked a renewed commitment to building a better future. The disaster forced the country to confront its vulnerabilities, but it also galvanized efforts to create a more resilient and equitable society. As Haiti continues to rebuild, the memory of the 2010 earthquake remains a powerful force in shaping the nation's future. The disaster left a legacy of loss and suffering, but it also sparked a renewed sense of solidarity and hope. The journey toward recovery is far from over, but the resilience and determination of the Haitian people offer a beacon of hope for the future. In the years since the earthquake, Haiti has faced many challenges, but it has also shown remarkable strength. The road ahead is uncertain, but there is a sense that out of the devastation, a stronger and more resilient Haiti can emerge. The 2010 earthquake will forever be a part of Haiti's history, but it does not define the country. Instead, it serves as a reminder of the power of resilience and the enduring hope for a better tomorrow. Between 2019 and 2020, Australia faced one of its most devastating natural disasters in recent history, the Black Summer Wildfires. This catastrophic series of fires began in September 2019 and continued until March 2020, burning through vast areas across the southeastern parts of the country. The wildfires affected New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia, with some of the most intense fires occurring from December 2019 to January 2020. Australia is no stranger to bushfires, but the scale and intensity of these fires were unprecedented. The fires scorched approximately 24.3 million hectares, 60 million acres of land, an area larger than many countries. The blazes resulted in the destruction of thousands of homes and buildings, causing significant loss of life and property. By the end of the fire season, the official death toll included 33 people directly from the fires, with additional deaths attributed to smoke inhalation and related health issues. The Black Summer wildfires were driven by a combination of extreme weather conditions, including record-breaking temperatures and severe drought. These factors created the perfect environment for fires to ignite and spread rapidly, leading to the unprecedented scale of destruction witnessed. The fires not only devastated communities, but also had a profound impact on the environment and wildlife, with millions of animals perishing and vast areas of natural habitat destroyed. This period marked a significant chapter in Australia's history, highlighting the severe impacts of climate change and the urgent need for improved fire management and environmental protection strategies. The formation of the Black Summer wildfires was driven by a combination of natural and human-induced factors. Australia experienced a particularly harsh drought, starting in late 2018, which continued into 2019. This drought, one of the most severe on record, drastically reduced soil moisture levels and left vegetation extremely dry. The dry conditions created a tinderbox effect, where even a small spark could trigger a massive blaze, and in the months leading up to the fires, Australia saw record-breaking temperatures. In December 2019, the average maximum temperature across the continent reached 40.9 Celsius, with the record being broken the next day at 40.9 Celsius. These extreme temperatures were accompanied by high winds, which further fueled the spread of the fires. The first fires were reported in early September 2019, primarily in the northern parts of New South Wales. The initial fires, such as the Long Gully Road fire near Drake, started as small outbreaks but quickly escalated due to the extreme heat and dry conditions. By October, these fires had already caused significant damage, destroying homes and threatening communities. As the fire season progressed, the situation worsened. By November 2019, fires had intensified across multiple states, including New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia. The Australian government and local fire services began preparations for a prolonged and challenging fire season. Resources were mobilized and firefighters from across Australia, as well as international teams from countries like Canada and New Zealand, were deployed to combat the blazes. The fires quickly became a major crisis. With dry conditions persisting and temperatures soaring, the fires spread rapidly, impacting larger areas and causing unprecedented damage. The early days of the fires set the stage for what would become one of the most devastating wildfire seasons in Australian history, with fires burning uncontrollably and wreaking havoc across the southeast of the country. As the Black Summer wildfires raged on, the scale of their destruction became increasingly apparent. The fires, fueled by the relentless heat and dry conditions, began to consume vast expanses of land. By late December 2019, the fires had reached their peak, causing widespread devastation across southeastern Australia. In New South Wales, hundreds of fires burned simultaneously, impacting communities across the state. The fires spread from the north coast to the Blue Mountains and the south coast. Towns such as Cobargo and Malakuta were severely affected, with flames threatening homes and forcing evacuations. The sheer intensity of the fires led to some areas being cut off, leaving residents stranded and in dire need of assistance. Victoria also faced its share of the crisis. Large fires in eastern and northeastern Victoria created a formidable challenge for firefighters. Areas such as East Gippsland saw fires that burned uncontrollably for weeks, destroying homes and infrastructure. The fire's impact was so severe that some towns, including Corryong and Malakuta, were isolated for extended periods. South Australia and the Australian Capital Territory were not spared either. The Adelaide Hills and Kangaroo Island experienced significant fires, while the AIC saw fires encroach on the outskirts of Canberra. The relentless fires led to the destruction of more than 3,000 buildings, including nearly 2,800 homes. The scale of the destruction extended beyond just buildings. The fires caused extensive damage to the environment, burning through an estimated 24.3 million hectares of land. This massive loss of land affected various ecosystems, decimating habitats and leading to the deaths of millions of animals. The fire's smoke created hazardous air quality across the country, impacting millions of people and contributing to an increase in respiratory issues. The fire's intensity and duration led to a crisis of monumental proportions. As firefighting efforts struggled to keep pace with the rapidly spreading blazes, the impact on communities, wildlife, and the environment became evident. The Black Summer wildfires left a trail of destruction that would take years to recover from, marking one of the darkest periods in Australia's recent history. The aftermath of the Black Summer wildfires left a landscape marked by both visible and hidden scars. The fires had burned through an enormous area, leaving vast expanses of land charred and barren. The environmental impact was profound and far-reaching. In the wake of the fires, the destruction of habitats was widespread. Forests that once thrived with diverse wildlife were left in ruins. The loss of vegetation meant that many animals, already struggling with the effects of climate change and habitat loss, faced even more severe challenges. Among the hardest hit were species already on the brink of extinction. The koala population, for instance, was dramatically affected. With their habitats severely impacted, conservationists feared that the fires might have pushed this iconic species closer to extinction. Estimates suggested that the koala population in New South Wales, Queensland, and the Australian Capital Territory had been reduced by more than half since the year 2000. The impact on other wildlife was equally severe. It was estimated that nearly 3 billion terrestrial vertebrates, mostly reptiles, were affected by the fires. Some endangered species were believed to have been driven to extinction. The fires also led to significant losses among plant species, with some areas potentially losing entire plant communities. The fires also had significant effects on the soil and water systems. The intense heat and burning of vegetation led to soil erosion, reducing the land's ability to support future plant growth. Water sources, including rivers and streams, were contaminated with ash and debris, affecting aquatic life and complicating water management in affected regions. The smoke from the fires had a severe impact on air quality across Australia. At the peak of the fires, air quality dropped to hazardous levels in many areas, leading to respiratory problems for millions of people. The smoke also traveled long distances, impacting air quality in other countries and contributing to global environmental concerns. The economic costs of the fires were staggering. The fires resulted in billions of dollars in property damage and economic losses. Tourism revenue fell significantly, and the cost of firefighting and recovery efforts soared. The Australian government, along with international aid and donations, worked to address the immediate needs of affected communities and support recovery efforts. The fires highlighted the urgent need for improved environmental protection and disaster preparedness. The Australian government's Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, designed to protect threatened species and their habitats, was found to be insufficient in preventing such widespread destruction. This led to calls for a review and strengthening of environmental laws to better safeguard Australia's unique wildlife and ecosystems. Overall, the Black Summer wildfires left a lasting impact on Australia's environment and its people. The recovery process would be long and challenging, requiring concerted efforts to restore damaged ecosystems, support affected communities, and address the broader issues of climate change and environmental conservation. The Black Summer wildfires were a devastating chapter in Australia's history, leaving a significant mark on both the environment and the people. As the fires were finally brought under control, the country faced the enormous task of recovery. The immediate aftermath saw efforts directed towards rebuilding communities and restoring infrastructure. Homes were reconstructed and damaged areas were repaired. With the help of both local and international aid, one of the major focuses was the restoration of the affected ecosystems. Conservationists worked tirelessly to replant trees, rehabilitate wildlife, and monitor the recovery of damaged habitats. Projects aimed at rebuilding wildlife corridors and restoring soil health were essential in helping the environment bounce back. However, experts acknowledge that the complete recovery of Australia's unique landscapes and wildlife would take many years. The Black Summer fires highlighted crucial lessons about disaster preparedness and climate resilience. The intensity and scale of the fires pointed to the need for improved fire management practices and better strategies for dealing with extreme weather events. Controlled burns, enhanced land management, and increased investment in firefighting resources became key areas of focus. Furthermore, the fires emphasized the urgent need to address climate change. Rising global temperatures and shifting climate patterns contributed to the severity of the fires, underlining the importance of comprehensive climate action to mitigate future risks. As Australia continues to rebuild, there is a renewed emphasis on creating a more resilient and sustainable future. The experience has driven a national and global dialogue on environmental protection and climate action. Although the path to recovery is long and challenging, the resilience of the affected communities and the commitment to tackling climate change offer hope for a more secure and sustainable future. Today, we'll take you through the story of one of the most devastating hurricanes in U.S. history. Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast in late August 2005, causing widespread destruction, especially in New Orleans and its surrounding areas. This powerful Category 5 hurricane resulted in 392 deaths and caused damages estimated at $186.3 billion. Hurricane Katrina was the 12th tropical cyclone, the 5th hurricane, and the 3rd major hurricane of the 2005 Atlantic hurricane season. It was also the 4th most intense Atlantic hurricane to make landfall in the contiguous United States, measured by barometric pressure. In this 5-part series, we'll dive into the formation of Hurricane Katrina, its impact on various regions, the aftermath, and the long-lasting effects on communities. Let's begin by understanding when and where it happened and the backstory leading up to this catastrophic event. In late August 2005, Hurricane Katrina formed over the Bahamas and made its way toward the Gulf Coast. Initially, it struck Florida as a Category 1 hurricane, causing some damage before it entered the Gulf of Mexico and rapidly intensified. By the time it made its second landfall in Louisiana and Mississippi on August 29th, it had become a Category 5 hurricane. The storm's most devastating effects were felt in New Orleans, where the failure of the levee system led to catastrophic flooding. Hurricane Katrina began as a tropical wave that moved off the coast of Africa and traveled across the Atlantic Ocean. On August 23, 2005, this wave merged with the remnants of Tropical Depression 10, forming a new tropical depression about 200 miles southeast of Nassau in the Bahamas. Over the next day, this depression gained strength and was designated Tropical Storm Katrina. As Tropical Storm Katrina moved northwest, it passed through the Bahamas On August 24th and 25th, the storm then turned westward towards Florida. On August 25th, just before making landfall between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Katrina strengthened into a Category 1 hurricane. With winds reaching up to 74 to 95 miles per hour, the storm caused significant rain and wind damage as it crossed southern Florida, leaving thousands without power. Once Katrina entered the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico on August 26th, it began to rapidly intensify. The storm's power grew quickly, reaching Category 3 status on August 27th. By the next day, August 28th, Katrina had become a formidable Category 5 hurricane with winds exceeding 170 miles per hour and a central pressure of 902 millibars. This made it one of the most powerful Atlantic storms on record. As the storm approached the Gulf Coast, warnings were issued and preparations began. Evacuations were ordered in low-lying areas, especially in New Orleans, where the risk of flooding was high due to the city's below-sea-level elevation and complex system of levees. Despite the warnings, not everyone was able to evacuate, and many residents remained in the path of the storm. In the next part, we will cover the landfall of Hurricane Katrina, the places it struck, and the immense destruction it caused. Stay tuned as we continue to unravel the events of this historic hurricane. On the morning of August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina made its first landfall as a Category 3 hurricane in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, about 45 miles southeast of New Orleans. The storm brought with it powerful winds of up to 125 miles per hour and a massive storm surge that would soon overwhelm the levees protecting the city. Katrina's path took it northeastward, and it made a second landfall later that morning near the Mississippi-Louisiana border. The storm surge, which reached heights of over 26 feet in some areas, slammed into the coastal cities of Gulfport and Biloxi, Mississippi, causing unprecedented destruction. Homes and buildings were obliterated, and the beachfront was left unrecognizable. In New Orleans, initial reports suggested that the city had avoided a direct hit. However, the true scale of the disaster became evident as the day progressed. The levee system, designed to protect the city from flooding, failed in multiple locations. The Industrial Canal, the 17th Street Canal, and the London Avenue Canal were all breached, allowing water from Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Borgne to pour into the city. By the afternoon of August 29th, approximately 20% of New Orleans was underwater. The flooding continued to worsen, and by the following day, nearly 80% of the city was submerged. Tens of thousands of residents who had not evacuated found themselves trapped with no access to food, water, or medical care. The New Orleans Superdome, which had been designated as a shelter of last resort, became a grim refuge for those who sought safety there. As the storm moved inland, it weakened but continued to cause significant damage. Katrina's remnants brought heavy rains and strong winds to Mississippi, Alabama, and even parts of Tennessee. Tornadoes spawned by the storm added to the destruction, uprooting trees and damaging buildings. The days following the landfall were marked by chaos and desperation. In New Orleans, the floodwaters rendered transportation and communication nearly impossible. Emergency services were overwhelmed, and the city descended into turmoil. Looting and violence erupted as people struggled to survive in the sweltering heat without basic necessities. In the next part, we will explore the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, the extent of the destruction, and the long-term impact on the affected communities. Stay tuned as we continue to tell the story of one of the most devastating natural disasters in U.S. history. The aftermath of Hurricane Katrina left a stark and haunting reality in its wake. The scale of destruction was immense and unprecedented. In New Orleans, the floodwaters that had inundated the city wreaked havoc on homes, businesses, and infrastructure. Nearly 80% of the city was underwater, with many areas submerged under several feet of water for weeks. The floodwaters, combined with the intense winds, destroyed entire neighborhoods, leaving behind a landscape of devastation. Beyond New Orleans to the Gulf Coast, where the cities of Gulfport and Biloxi in Mississippi faced catastrophic damage. The storm surge here reached heights of up to 28 feet, which was the highest recorded during Katrina. Coastal resorts, homes, and businesses were obliterated. In these areas, the storm surge and accompanying waves combined to leave virtually no structures standing along the beachfront. The impact on the residents was equally devastating. Many who had survived the initial impact of the storm found themselves grappling with a new crisis: a severe shortage of food, water, and medical supplies. The floodwaters had rendered roads impassable and cut off access to many of the city's vital resources. The situation was exacerbated by the sweltering heat and lack of sanitation, which created health hazards and led to a public health emergency. The chaos in the city was compounded by a breakdown in communication and emergency services. With local agencies and facilities submerged and inoperative, the response from first responders was severely hampered. Many residents were left stranded in the flooded areas, waiting for rescue efforts that were slow to materialize due to the scale of the disaster. The response from the federal government and other agencies began to take shape as the days passed. The National Guard, along with local and federal officials, worked to provide aid and begin the process of rebuilding. However, the challenges were immense. The slow and often criticized response to the disaster highlighted significant issues in disaster preparedness and response at all levels of government. In the next part, we'll delve into the long-term consequences of Hurricane Katrina, the efforts to rebuild, and the ongoing impact on the affected communities. Stay tuned as we continue to explore the aftermath of one of the most devastating hurricanes in American history. Hurricane Katrina's legacy is one of profound devastation and enduring change. The storm's aftermath revealed critical flaws in disaster preparedness and response systems, prompting significant reforms and ongoing debates about how to handle such massive emergencies. In the years following Katrina, efforts to rebuild and recover from the disaster were immense. The federal government, along with state and local agencies, launched a massive recovery and reconstruction effort. Funds were allocated to repair and strengthen the levee systems, with the aim of preventing future failures. Infrastructure was rebuilt, homes were repaired or replaced, and communities began to slowly recover from the physical and emotional toll of the storm. The recovery process was long and challenging. Many residents who had fled during the storm faced difficulties returning to their homes, and some never came back. The population of New Orleans, which had been around 450,000 before the storm, saw a significant decline. By 2011, it was down by nearly 30%, and although the population began to rise again, the city had not fully returned to its pre-Katrina numbers. Hurricane Katrina also brought to light issues of social inequality and preparedness. The hardest hit areas were often those with existing vulnerabilities, and the disaster disproportionately affected low-income and minority communities. The slow response and inadequate relief efforts highlighted systemic issues that needed to be addressed to ensure a more equitable recovery process in future disasters. The impact of Hurricane Katrina extended beyond the immediate damage. It reshaped the way Americans view and prepare for hurricanes. The storm spurred changes in emergency management practices, with increased focus on improving communication, evacuation plans, and infrastructure resilience. The experience of Katrina has informed responses to subsequent disasters, with lessons learned about the importance of timely and effective action. Globally, Hurricane Katrina became a symbol of both human suffering and resilience. It prompted a massive outpouring of aid and support from around the world, with many countries offering assistance and donations to help the affected areas. The disaster underscored the interconnectedness of global communities and the importance of solidarity in times of crisis. In conclusion, Hurricane Katrina was a defining moment in American history. It exposed vulnerabilities, sparked changes in disaster management, and highlighted the strength and resilience of the people affected. While the scars of Katrina remain, the recovery and rebuilding efforts have demonstrated the enduring spirit of the communities that faced the storm. The story of Hurricane Katrina is a reminder of the power of nature, the importance of preparedness, and the strength of human determination in the face of adversity.